Right now, inside a cave in South Africa called Wonderwerk, there is a layer of ash embedded in the rock floor. It is 1 million years old. Archaeologists found burnt bone fragments and plant ash so deep inside the cave that no natural fire, no lightning strike, no spontaneous combustion could have reached there. Something carried fire into that cave. Something kept it burning inside. That something was your ancestor, and what happened in the million years between that first controlled flame and the world you live in now is arguably the single most important sequence of events in the history of the human species. Not the wheel, not agriculture, not language, fire. Let's start before the discovery, before anyone picked up a flame and carried it somewhere. For the first 2 million years of human evolution, fire existed everywhere around your ancestors, and they did nothing with it. Lightning struck dry grass on the African savanna every season. Volcanic eruptions sent rivers of burning rock down mountainsides. Spontaneous combustion ignited forest floors during dry seasons. Fire was not rare. Fire was not mysterious. It was terrifying. Every other animal on Earth runs from fire. The instinct to flee from heat and smoke is one of the oldest survival responses in the animal kingdom, conserved across hundreds of millions of years because the animals that did not run from fire died in it. Your ancestors had that instinct too, and for a very long time, they used it the same way every other animal did. Then something changed. The change did not happen the way most people imagine. There was no single moment of discovery, no one ancestor standing in front of a burning tree having a sudden realization. The relationship between early humans and fire developed gradually, over hundreds of thousands of years, in stages that anthropologists are still working to fully understand. The first stage was opportunistic use. Fire left behind by lightning strikes or volcanic activity creates something useful in its aftermath. Cooked animals, animals trapped by fire and killed, their flesh already partially prepared by the heat. Exposed termite mounds where the insects have fled, leaving their protein-rich bodies accessible. Cracked open nuts, roasted in the heat of a grass fire. Your ancestors were scavengers before they were hunters. They arrived at kill sites after the predators had taken the best cuts. They crept to the edges of burning landscapes after the fire had passed, before the smoke had fully cleared, to pick through what the flames had prepared. They were eating cooked food before they could make fire, before they understood what fire was. The second stage was carrying. At some point, researchers believe this happened between 1.5 million and 1 million years ago. An ancestor did not flee from a natural fire. They approached it, they picked up a burning branch, and they carried it. This is the moment that separated your lineage from every other species on Earth. Not the act of making fire, the act of maintaining it, of understanding on some level that this thing could be kept alive if you fed it, and that keeping it alive was worth the effort. A burning branch carried back to a sleeping site would have changed everything about the night. Predators that had stalked the camp perimeter every dark hour suddenly had a reason to stay back. The cold that had limited the hours of useful activity suddenly had an answer. The darkness that had made the world dangerous for 12 hours of every day was suddenly, partially, under human control. The psychological shift that must have accompanied this cannot be overstated. For millions of years, your ancestors had been prey as much as predator. Small, relatively slow, without claws or venom, surviving in a landscape full of things that could kill them in seconds. Fire inverted that relationship in a single generation. But carrying fire has a problem. You can carry a flame from one place to another. You can feed it and keep it alive. But if it goes out, if the rain comes, if you sleep too long, if the wind takes it, you cannot get it back without finding another natural source. Communities that could not make fire from scratch were permanently dependent on finding it. And finding it meant waiting for lightning, for volcanic activity, for the seasonal grass fires that could burn for weeks across the savanna. The ability to make fire, to produce it intentionally from raw materials on demand, is a different cognitive and technological threshold entirely. The oldest evidence of deliberate firemaking is contested. Some researchers place it as far back as 400,000 years ago in sites across Europe and the Middle East. Others argue the consistent, controlled evidence does not appear until roughly 200,000 years ago. What is not contested is the method. Friction fire, two pieces of wood, one harder than the other. A bow or hand drill to spin the harder piece against the softer one, generating heat through friction until a coal forms in the dust. The coal transferred to a bundle of dry tinder, grass, bark, dried fungus, and blown gently until the tinder catches. It sounds simple. It is not. A modern person placed in a forest with no tools and no prior knowledge has almost no chance of producing fire by friction without instruction. The wood species must be correctly matched. The moisture content of both pieces must fall within a narrow range. The technique must be precise and sustained. The tinder must be prepared correctly before the coal is produced, because a coal lasts seconds. The knowledge required to make fire reliably is not discovered by one person in one afternoon. It is accumulated over generations, tested, refined, passed down, improved. It is exactly the kind of knowledge that requires language to transmit accurately. Some researchers believe that the development of reliable fire-making and the development of complex language may have co-evolved, each making the other more valuable and more necessary. What fire did to the human body is well documented. Cooking is predigestion. Raw meat and raw plant material require enormous amounts of energy to break down chemically in the gut. Cooked food arrives at the digestive system already partly broken apart. The body extracts more calories per bite. The gut can be smaller. The energy that would have gone to running a larger gut went instead to the brain. The human gut is significantly smaller relative to body size than the guts of other great apes. The human brain is significantly larger. Researchers Richard Wrangham and his colleagues at Harvard have argued that this ratio is not a coincidence, that cooking, enabled by fire, is the primary driver of the dramatic brain expansion that separates modern humans from every earlier hominin. We did not get big brains and then discover fire. We discovered fire and grew bigger brains. But fire did something beyond nutrition that may have been equally important. It extended the day. Before fire, the social life of your ancestors ended at sundown. Predators that were manageable in daylight became lethal in darkness. The camp went quiet. People slept. Fire pushed that boundary back by hours. Hours that were not needed for survival. Hours that could be spent talking, demonstrating, storytelling, performing, planning. Hours that were, in a very real sense, the first leisure time in human history. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has called the campfire the original social institution. The evidence supports this. Every human culture ever documented has a version of the fire circle, a gathering around a central flame where the group comes together at the end of the day to eat, talk, and share information. It appears in every society, on every continent, across every period of recorded human history. The campfire did not just cook your food, it cooked your culture. And then there was warmth. The ability to generate and maintain heat on demand meant that your ancestors could move into environments that would have killed them without it, into the Ice Age landscapes of Northern Europe and Asia, into the high altitudes where temperatures dropped to lethal levels at night, into the environments that every other tropical primate had been permanently excluded from. Fire did not just change what your ancestors ate or how long they stayed awake. It changed where they could go. It opened the entire planet. So here is the full answer. It did not start with a discovery. It started with scavenging cooked meat from the edges of natural fires 1,000,000 years ago. It progressed through carrying flames and maintaining them for hundreds of thousands of years. It culminated in the ability to produce fire intentionally, a skill so technically demanding that it required generations of accumulated knowledge and possibly the development of complex language to transmit. And what it produced was not just warmth and cooked food. It produced the brain you are using right now to read these words. It produced the social intelligence that makes you human. It produced the surplus hours in which everything we call civilization was invented. Every idea you have ever had was thought in a brain that fire built. And somewhere inside you, every time you sit near a flame, some part of that brain still knows it.